Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Amazing. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jermaine, and this is the presentation on how to use unconventional job search strategies to find your dream job. To give you a bit of background about me, I am a recruiter. I've been recruiting for the last 4 years now, and I specialize in technology recruitment, but I've also helped a number of people find jobs in a number of different industries, and I hope to share some of the strategies that I've employed to help these people find these jobs with you and empower your own search. So we'll get right into it. This is going to be an interactive webinar of sorts, and you'll see how so later on, but be prepared to type in and interact with me throughout the presentation if you have any questions. Of course, there's going to be a Q&A portion, but be prepared to use the chat box. So, unconventional job search strategies. A conventional job search would be something like the usual process of going on a website with your resume and applying in a job board and then waiting for a call back. It's a very passive way of doing things, and you taking the dynamic and the power away from you, the individual. So unconventional job search strategies seem to apply to methods that would be deemed outside of the box. A lot of times you yourself will be the one that is pursuing and being a more of an active participant. So, so here's what we can expect throughout this this webinar. Oh, just checking in. We have some new participants. Hey, is everyone able to hear me? Amazing. Okay, so what to expect from this webinar? First, we're going to go through what I like to call the fundamentals. The normal things that you should have already prepared before you start to go out and go through these non-traditional means of applying for jobs. That would be your LinkedIn, your resume, and also identifying overlapping skills. And the next segment we're going to be going into would be developing your skill set, what kind of strategies you can employ, and why you might want to develop a certain skill set and what you can do. Then we go into social media strategies, particularly how to use the in-mail function on LinkedIn, one of my favorite functions for connecting and networking, but also getting insights to what companies are doing. And then finally, we're going to talk a bit about networking events, how to identify them, who to target, what to say, and using recruitment agencies like other recruiters like myself. So LinkedIn. As we all know, LinkedIn is one of the best platforms to go and look for a job. Some people have some misconceptions about LinkedIn, thinking that it's more of a social media platform or it's a job board, when in reality, it's all of those things. LinkedIn is something that you can use to get information about a company, about a job, and in some cases, an idea of what comes next in your career. So key LinkedIn stats that you can see on the screen. Last year, 122 million people received an interview through LinkedIn. That's a huge amount of people. That's a huge amount of transactions. It doesn't say anything about the merit share applicants. 35 million people say they were hired by a person they connected with on the site. That could be a recruiter, a hiring manager, or a colleague that you turn into a friend that then turns into a referral. Employers reveal that employees hired through LinkedIn are less likely to leave the company within the first 6 months. This is an important point, and this is something you should consider in order to when you're doing interviews. Hiring is a very expensive process. Companies invest a lot of money to hire the right people because the whole process of finding somebody is a very expensive endeavor. For instance, and you'll see this later, LinkedIn has a special access and gateway for recruiters. To have these seats, we actually have to pay, our company has to pay about $12,000 in licensing fees per person. So they want to make sure that they spend a short amount of time hiring people, and they want to make sure that they can, again, find the right people, use every tool to identify that person, and hire them. So if you position yourself properly on LinkedIn, you'll appear to be one of those people. 92% of companies that hire rely on LinkedIn for talent pipelines. That is true. And 87% of recruiters say they exclusively use LinkedIn to search for candidates. Again, agency, internal, we're all on LinkedIn because it's our #1 way of finding people that we want to hire. So let's see here. I'm just going to double check the sound. Yep, I'm coming in clearly. Leighton, you might want to try refreshing. Oh wait, you can't hear me. Let me just tell them to refresh. Okay, so this screen here in front of us is what a recruiter screen looks like in LinkedIn. Whenever somebody is hiring, like I said earlier, we have a license to access a special version of Recruiter of LinkedIn that we call Recruiter. And this is what the opening screen looks like. You know, I'll look for I'll type in a job title, I'll type in an area, and I'll try to type in some skills that will act as keywords to initialize my search. And then this next screen is what comes up. This is what I see. This is what all the recruiters see. And this is why it's important to make sure that your LinkedIn is properly keyed, properly optimized for keyword searches. Based on these keywords that you see over in this red box, it tells us who would be a best fit based on what we're looking for. So we're able to key in, we're able to really specify what we're looking for, and the more relevant search words or keywords that pop up, the more likely you're going to pop in on our radar. So in your settings, it's always important to make sure that when you are on LinkedIn, that you allow us, recruiters, to see that you're open for new opportunities. And this is in your settings under privacies and your job seeking preferences. You can see here that you can let us know that you're open to opportunities. In that recruiter, in the last previous slide, in that recruiter view, we're able to still message you even if you don't say that you're open to opportunities. But again, back to a cost analysis, LinkedIn charges recruiters for every email that they have. So it is in our best interest to try and make sure that our emails are going to people that are open to jobs. So you want to make sure that this is clicked off. So the next portion of your fundamentals is your resume and some key facts about your resumes. The average time spent by recruiters looking at your resume, 5 to 7 seconds. This is partly because we get a lot of resumes to go through. I think I average about 100 to 200 resumes per day. And in terms of efficiency, but also after a while, it can be hard to kind of sit and really go through. So we are conditioned to go through them very quickly. We do use applicant tracking software. That's a program or artificial intelligence that read your resumes, and they're able to eliminate a large portion of applicants just because they don't have relevant keywords or enough keywords. And as per a recruiter survey, this is true. 70% of recruiters agree that job experience is the most important aspect of a resume. So in that 5 to 7 seconds, most recruiters just literally jump into either your technical skills or your experience, and that's trying to see if they're able to identify the places that you worked at, or if you've created enough of a picture for us to be able to realize, okay, this is what this person is like in this environment. This is how they impact. This is how they. These are the things that they've achieved. So this is another interesting stat as well, that 92% of surveyed recruiters say resumes they can tell when resumes are tailored to their specific positions. Now, in reality, when you're trying to apply for as many jobs as possible, are you going to be making a resume for each and every position? Most likely not. However, and I always stress this, if you see a job or a company that is really interesting, you should tailor the resume to that particular job and make sure that it's explicitly known that I'm tailoring this resume to this job, because that impresses recruiters. That gives us more comfort, and it gives us a feeling that you would be a real good fit in our environment because you're taking that time to make that extra effort. And 87% of recruiters say they exclusively use LinkedIn to search for candidates. Again, this is to emphasize that your resume and your LinkedIn should be consistent. They should reflect one another. Your LinkedIn should have some more media, but again, whatever's on your resume should be consistent with your LinkedIn, because that could also turn us off in the sense that makes you feel like you're not as credible as you possibly could be. And you always want to avoid writing a responsibility resume versus an achievement one. And we're going to be going through some examples so you'll have an idea of what that looks like. But an achievement resume talks about something that you achieved in your environment, the impact that you made, and more or less, how did you make the lives of your bosses much easier? So PAR is how you would make an achievement-based resume. PAR is an acronym that I use that stands for Problem, Action, and Results. When you're keying up your resume, when you are going and you're investing to kind of create this story of how you were as an employee, PAR does a great job of enabling you to really articulate that. So the P stands for problem. In your experience, you want to highlight a challenge or an obstacle that your company faced that was relevant to your role. The action talks about the technical skills you use to implement a solution that fixed the problem. And you always want to end up with results. Most of the resumes that I get, they actually cover the first two aspects really well, but they always leave off the results. And we want to know what the results are in the sense of what happened in that environment. How did things change? Was that a result of happier customers? Were you able to improve the overall process, make things more efficient? And again, the sexiest thing for a manager to hear on a resume is that you help generate more revenue. Now, when you can, it's always best to use numbers or percentages to kind of give context to the impact that you are making. So we have a quick exercise coming up right now, and it's called, Is This Resume Getting a Call Back? I'm going to show you 3 different resumes that I've used over my careers and every time that I've transitioned, and I'd like to see if you'd like to be able to tell whether or not I got a call back based on this resume. So the first one, this was a resume that I submitted when I was looking for a job in the media space. I was a videographer, and I was also a radio host at SiriusXM. Now, I'm just going to pause, see here. Seems like we're still having some trouble. Refresh. So, as I said earlier, we talked about PAR, we talked a bit about experience, and we talked about making those impact statements. Now, based on this resume, do you think I got a call back? Did I adhere to those principles? And again, did I get a call back? You can type yes or no in the chat box, and we'll see what was right. I'll give you the answer afterwards. Wow, you guys are dragging me. You're next. You guys are correct. I did not get a call back on this. Like you said, there was no PAR. I didn't talk about my achievements or what the end results were. So good for you guys. The next one. This was a bit more of a refined resume. Again, I was doing more media-based stuff. And yes, if you look over in the right corner, let's see here if we can zoom in. Okay. All right, so this would be, again, I put this on the side because I thought it would be kind of hard for us to read. This is the experience block part of the resume. Like I said, the same thing as before. Do you think I got a call back based off this resume? Nope. 1%. Maybe. So I got one call back from this resume. It was out of, I think I sent 250 applications, and the callback I got was from a friend that owned a blog for that needed some help. So good kudos to you guys. Once again, did not get it. Okay. Oh, give me 1 second. Awesome. And then our last resume for this exercise. This is when I was working in sales, and I wanted to get a new sales job. Yes or no? Do you think I got that sales job? Do you think I got that call back? Yep, correct. I did get the call back. Car can be easier with a sales job, but this was a moment that I realized that it's all about achievement, and I think a lot of times people don't give themselves enough credit. Just because you might not be able to attach a number doesn't mean achievement did not happen. Anytime that you have something that you would want your supervisor to know, that counts as an achievement, that counts as a success, because that's the information that other supervisors are going to want to know as well. And you just got to be able to identify the places and the skills that you want to broadcast and you want to use as your foundation going forward. Okay, and speaking of overlapping skills, so the best way to transition from one career into another, in my experience, has always been to emphasize where your overlapping skills are. Use that to not only guide and key in your resume, but also for you to be able to roadmap where you want to go next. For me, for instance, I started out in radio, I went into sales, and I got into recruiting. And when you plot out that narrative, it doesn't sound very consistent. But my key skills that I found overlapped into a lot of different industries was I was a strong communicator. PAR means problem, action, result. Just an FYI, I'm also going to be making this presentation available for download as well, and I'll email everybody a link. Yvette, thank you for joining us. I think you missed the PAR slide, but we will, again, it's in the presentation and you'll be able to have access to that. Awesome. So for overlapping skills, like I said, for my strongest skill set was that I was a strong communicator and that I was able to talk quite a bit. And I looked for roles where that was the focal point. For radio, obviously talking and interviewing, but I also transitioned that to sales where strong communication skills, listening skills are vital for customer interactions and helping people solve problems. And then I went into recruiting because it followed pretty much the same set of skills. You need to be a strong communicator, you need to be able to listen, and you need to be able to take the information people are giving you and direct them into something that would benefit them. And it's the same thing with any other industry. So I had these 3 questions that I've been helping people figure out how to roadmap their career, and I would start off with this. What are my 3 strongest skills? What do I love doing? And what jobs utilize these skills the most? The first 2 might seem very similar, but they are actually quite different. Your strongest skills could be something that you personally don't love doing, but you're just really good at. For an example, there are a number of basketball players that only play basketball because they're tall, and they don't love doing it. They love bowling, but they're better at basketball. So that's the difference between what my three strongest skills are and what do I love doing. If there's overlap between those two, amazing. You're in a better spot. Now, the last one, what jobs utilize these skills the most? This is actually a very interesting one. You can actually plug into Google what jobs rely the most on, for example, communication, mathematics, and computer science. Three random ones. But Google will actually be able to tell you, give you a list of job descriptions that follow that search. So it's also a really good way to kind of roadmap your next move. Some examples of some very common overlapping skills that will get you far anywhere in your career. I take things, I have an emphasis on technology, and when I was transitioning from sales from enterprise, a car rental business, into technology recruiting, I had to emphasize these three skills. For me, and I also realize that these are very common in other industries as well, creativity. I think that's pretty standard. It's a regular Google search. But in terms of these overlapping skills, creativity, always being able to think outside the box, approach solutions with outside the box, approach solutions with things that haven't been done before will always be valuable no matter what industry you go into. Being able to persuade people to your side, your line of thinking, or just being a strong communicator makes it easy for you to integrate into almost any culture on a team and being able to adapt. Especially, for instance, the environment that we're in with the recent pandemic, you have to be able to adapt. And a lot of businesses are now adapting to remote work from home options to survive. And that's the same approach you should take with your career. No matter what happens, just because you might not have a certain avenue in front of you available, don't be afraid to adapt and pivot in a new direction. You will always give yourself options. So how do you develop your skill set? This might be another challenge as well. Of course, overlapping skills are great, but how can you develop new skills in order to advance further in your career or just in life in general? Now, in this age that we're in, there are actually quite a few different options. The first one is pursuing a certification. A cert immediately gives you credibility in terms of the knowledge, in terms of saying that you have a certain amount of knowledge. If you can also pair this with some real life experience, it helps you out even more. And you can get your certifications from a number of different places, including the usual online accreditations like Udemy, Coursera, or Khan Academy, but also universities like Stanford, MIT, and Harvard have free online certification courses, as well as ones that you can pay for. I won't lie to you, the way it works in hiring, it's very subjective. So if you have a cert from, say, a Harvard or from an MIT or from a Stanford, I won't lie to you, it might not push your application over the edge, but it will make somebody do a double glance. Again, human beings are very subjective, and we have all of our biases. It's about being able to use those biases to your advantage when you can. The next option is creating your own projects. I'm always a big advocate of you showing and creating your own projects to kind of show hiring managers that you are someone that craves personal development. And you're probably wondering what a project might be. Again, I'm in the tech space. An example of someone making their own project would be an app developer creating an application. But let's say, for instance, you wanted to get into network security, keeping track of what's going on in your home network, documenting about virus attacks that you kind of rejected. That could be an example of a project. If you were, say, an MBA holder, for instance, and you wanted to get a role that's in maybe business development or something that has to do with creating different business cases and creating different business ideas in the form of, like I said, business cases, can show that you're somebody that ideates, somebody that can take a concept, identify an opportunity, and try to build something from that. The next way you can also develop your skill set is by pursuing collaboration projects. So these sites, meetup.com, LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, and even some Slack channels, have a community of people that come together towards one specific goal. In tech, it would be part of potentially developing an app together. When I was working in media, there were a number of these organizations that were creating small films, and it was all collaborative. It was all group collaboration. But that's still something tangible. That's still some experience that you can put on your resume. And the last one are consulting services. Creating your own business, making yourself and your skill set a business, going out and getting clients. That's a good way to create advocates. That's a good way to get tangible experience. And that's a good way for you to see how different industries operate. Whatever your niche is, there will always be an opportunity for a subject matter expert to brand themselves as a consultant. So these are some of the certifications in tech right now that have the highest ceiling in terms of salary and what they can really do for you. Now, like I said, I'm in the tech space and that's where my focus is, but this gives you an example of how a certification, how that credibility can really enhance your earning potential. Now, these are all in USDs, but nonetheless, some of these are some really crazy numbers. But going in with this information is always important to have. So let's talk about LinkedIn InMail best practices. LinkedIn, as I've been harping, is such a huge network. It's such a huge tool that's going to enable you to pretty much be able to connect and really use different means of being able to connect and contact people and build those relationships. So when you're emailing somebody, though, it can be an awkward experience, especially if you don't know the person and you don't necessarily know what to say. So I always say it's always about how you look at the actual activity itself. You should be asking yourself, what can this person offer me? You want to make sure that you're messaging somebody with intention. Nothing is worse than getting an email that's just hi. I don't know how to respond to just hi if I don't know you. It's weird. So why are you reaching out to me in the first place? Ask yourself what you can learn from them, and that's also a great position to kind of engage with somebody. Hey, you are in the space that I'm trying to get into. I think that you'd be able to help me out in terms of giving me some feedback about your journey and what you would have done in my situation. Can I buy you a coffee? Can we have a quick phone call? That is a lot more, that's an easier way to digest meeting somebody than just, hey, help me out. Ask yourself, if I was this person, what would I need to hear in order to be interested? You'd be surprised that asking yourself this question before you reach out to somebody can really change your perspective and can really make sure that you are making a meaningful attempt at outreaching. How are we similar? How are we different? Being able to find a common ground will always make the meeting of strangers and new people so much easier. And then again, you have to ask, why am I contacting this person? Go in with intention. Because when you go in with intention, you avoid the awkwardness. So we have another example, another exercise, a very quick one. Which is the better LinkedIn message? So on message A, we have me reaching out to a colleague I connected with on LinkedIn named Sheena. I thought that she could help me out. And then on B, we have a colleague named Neela. Now, obviously, this is pretty straightforward. I would be surprised if anybody said A, but this goes to show you the difference in approach. You always want to, again, people have egos. I'm not going to lie to you. People really have egos, and you always want to make sure that you are appealing to their ego before you ask them for something. So just giving them a short, hey, like, you have a great profile, or you're at a place that I want to get to, can go a long way in kind of softening the blow of being a stranger. Again, just getting straight to the point, no fluff, no BS. What are you looking for? What do you want? What's the intention? And the reason why you want to appeal You're funny, Abdu. The reason why you want to appeal to this person's ego again is you want to let them know that them helping you with their expertise can help you further yourself in their journey. That makes people feel good. That makes them feel like they're doing something, something noteworthy within the world and giving back. And again, ego. It's all about ego. This helps appeal to somebody's ego that they did something good, and they're more than likely to connect with you. And that's the start. That's your into building a genuine relationship with somebody. Again, you want to make sure that you're showing an interest in them and you're making the conversation about them and not about you. So networking events is what I call the difference maker. And there are a number of different ways to go about it. I'm going to go into the next slide about using recruitment agencies, but a lot of recruitment agencies host a number of networking events. Great way for you to meet other like-minded people and potentially some hiring managers. Now, how do you identify networking events? Usually, my go-to is to go on a site like Meetup.com or Facebook groups. But also, I found that there are a number of organizations that specialize in organizing events solely for the industry that they're in. Me being in tech, that was Tech Toronto, which you can find at techtoronto.org. They host some of the largest networking events in Toronto, and they usually have a crowd of around 500 people. They've also now, because of the pandemic, shifted to an online format. There's COFP, which is the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. It's a mouthful, I know, but they're an organization geared towards helping Black people find roles in finance in different verticals like tech, of course, finance like banking, legal, and business development, and then BPTN, which is a Black Professional Technologies Network. It's an organization of kind of like COFP, but with more of a focus in tech. Now, when you go to a networking event, who are you trying to target? To be honest, you're trying to target everyone, as many people as possible. When you go to a networking event, you should be aiming to more or less connect with as many people because you don't know who is who. People go to networking events with the idea that they want to meet somebody that's going to give them a job. That's a very specific approach. And that's something that's limiting in your thinking, to be completely honest. Chances of you finding that specific person is very slim. Now, if you go with the intention of, I'm just trying to meet as many people as possible, network, get an idea of who is who, and take it from there, that will always be the most beneficial thing for you to do. Now, your goal should be to walk away with a point of contact so that after the event, you can follow up on people that you wanted to talk to that you thought were interesting. Phone, email, LinkedIn, all three, those all count. Maybe they're Twitter, maybe they're Facebook, but those three are the most direct and the best way to ensure that you always keep it in a professional setting. Now, what to say? This is actually a very common problem for everybody. What do you say at a networking event? How do you avoid it being awkward? Now, my approach, and I have a very special personality, so it might not work, but I usually go and I try to identify some common ground, and then I'll make a bad knock-knock joke or something stupid. But the idea is that, you loosen up, you inject a little bit of humor, and then you can really start talking to the people. You can really start asking about them, what brings them there, talk a little bit about yourself. But I think the thing about networking events and meeting new people that a lot of people are afraid of is the fact that you are afraid you're going to run out of things to say. You're going to have that awkward silence. What do you do in that awkward silence? It's awkward. Nobody likes to enjoy it. So how do you overcome that? There is a book that I read once that said, in order to be a great listener, a great conversationalist, you have to be a great listener. In order to be a great listener and to get somebody to talk a lot, again, it has to do with ego. You got to get them to talk about themselves, talk about what they do, who they are, where they've been, what they would do if they were in charge of where they are, what are they looking forward to, and just, again, encourage them to talk about themselves, and before long, you'll walk away with a friend. And that is the best way to avoid those awkward moments, and silences. So recruitment agencies now. Recruitment agencies are like real estate brokers, except for a job. They know companies that are hiring, and they know people that are looking for jobs, and they try to connect the two as a middleman. They can be, for better or worse term, they can be a mixed bag in terms of your experience with them. Some people have really good experiences. Some people have really bad experiences. Now, to ensure that you are putting yourself in the best position to win when it comes to a recruiter, these are the best practices, in my opinion. The first thing is you gotta know that a recruiter can and will only help you when they have a relevant role for you. Recruiters, especially in the big agencies, they only get paid when they make a hire, and they can only make a hire when they have a relevant candidate. If you are not a relevant candidate for the jobs that they're trying to get hired, they won't pay you any mind. It's not personal, it's business, because they have to go find somebody that's a good fit for that role. Now, this is also to say it is up to you to define what your ideal fit is to a recruiter. You have to be very clear, because it is in your best interest to get hired where you're a good fit, where you enjoy working, the people that you're working with, and the stuff that you're working on. However, like I said before, it is in the recruiter's best interest to get you hired. Know the difference. The good recruiters, the great recruiters, are the ones that they're the ones that focus on finding a good fit for you. That's why if they don't have a job that's a good fit for you, they won't reach out to you. But if they do, they will. Now, there are a lot of bad recruiters that think that because you have a certain level of skills or a certain number of skills listed on your resume that you'd be a good fit for a position, when in fact your resume plus, again, your beaming personality would make anybody to hire you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a good fit. There are recruiters that won't be honest with you and tell you that whether they think something's a good fit. If the hiring manager says, hey, I want to hire this person and pay you your fee, the recruiter is going to be encouraging you to take the job. So again, it is in the recruiter's best interest to get you hired. It is in your best interest to get hired where you're a good fit. Know the difference. Never get married to one recruiter. Use multiples. This is weird as a recruiter that I'm telling you this, but listen to me. For the reasons that I listed above, a recruiter can't help you out unless they have a relevant role. But a recruiter, the bad recruiters, don't want you to use other recruiters, because if somebody else places you, somebody else gets paid, and some will view that your relationship was, whatever it was at that point, was a waste of time. But it is in your best interest to use multiple recruiters, because, again, if somebody doesn't have a job that's relevant for you, somebody else might, and it's a numbers game at that point. So you want to use as many as possible. Always clearly define your salary and what you're targeting and your non-negotiables. Be explicitly clear in this, because if you interview for a role and you get the offer and you turn it down, you want to make sure that the recruiter knows that the reason why you're doing it is for the reasons that you were explicitly clear for before, and that it was on them as to why this isn't a good fit, because you told them this wouldn't be a good fit. But in terms of salary, again, you want to clearly define the salary that you need. You know your life, you know your expenses. The recruiters don't, and in some cases, like I said, if some of them felt like they could get paid off of getting you hired at a job that paid you less, they would do it, and they would not tell you to reconsider it. They would tell you that they would make up some excuse about stepping down to step up or something of that nature, some BS. Know your salary, know what you need, and stick with it. Because again, that's in your best interest. And I have to reiterate this one more time. Connect with as many recruiters as possible. It's a numbers game. So these are some of the top recruitment agencies that you can check out that I know from personal experience as well. Robert Half International is a very large, I think it's the third or fourth large recruitment agency in the world. It's also the place where I actually started my recruitment career. they have specific divisions that help out multiple lines of business. So I was part of Robert Half Technology, and that's why I have an emphasis in tech. But they also have teams that are dedicated to filling out marketing, finance, office support roles, executive search roles, the whole 9 yards, a lot of stuff in the legal space. So look to connect with recruiters at Robert Half. Randstad is the biggest recruitment agency in the world. Think Robert Half, but 3 times bigger. Fun fact, they also own the job boards Workopolis and Monster. So if you are a good candidate and you apply for a job at any of those boards, chances are a Randstad recruiter might be calling you. And just a small tidbit, Toronto itself is home to over 100 plus small niche recruitment firms. To actually be more transparent, this 100 plus was actually just tech-focused recruitment firms. The number is unimaginable when you factor in the other verticals and industries. And for every industry, I guarantee you there is a recruitment firm, somebody that staffs for it, somebody that has connections. There are also nonprofit organizations like Black Professional Technologies, or their Talent X division, and Icon Talent Partners that specialize in creating talent pipelines for, in a lot of cases, underrepresented demographics, but they help out anybody that's a good fit for a role. So to summarize this, different ways you can find a job in 2020. Referrals and job or career websites, cold calling recruiters and headhunters, consulting and doing contract work, attending as many networking events as possible. I did the math. It was something like a 4 per month to really get some returns, or something completely out of the park like a video resume, which I have an example of. Oh, I thought I did. Give me one. Which I have an example of right here. So this is one of my favorite video resumes. It was done by a marketer, but being playful, being humorous, and showing that you are an enjoyable human being can get you far. Now let's take a look. You know what? I just realized that there's no sound, so I apologize, folks. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to post this in the invite and make sure everyone gets a copy to the link. And finally, I'm going to talk a bit about some negotiation tips for salary. You should consider that whenever you start the process of doing an interview, that is when you are talking about salary and going through the salary negotiation process. So a couple of rules. First, do not disclose your salary history or your salary requirements. Does it feel a bit dishonest? Yes. Will it make you uncomfortable? Yes. But first and foremost, having that air of mystery, having that flexibility, giving yourself that room, puts you in a much better place to negotiate a much higher salary. Rule 2, once an offer is made, usually the process is you counter by sending a worded email with a number that's about a bit like 10 to 20% of what they offered, and you want to emphasize this as a base salary. And then rule 3 is once they return your counter, they'll be sending the formal final discussion, and this is when you have to make the decision on whether or not you want to go forward with their offer. It's always good to keep this in mind when you are going for a job. Like I said, you need to have a non-negotiable. You need to have an anchoring point, a point where you're going to say, you know what, this isn't for me. If I get anything less than this, I'm going to walk away. So you don't disclose your salary requirements until you get to the final offer stage. If they ask in the beginning, if they ask what are you targeting, just say that you're open to seeing what's on the market, and you need to see more about the role. So usually after the second interview is when you would want to talk a bit more about your salary expectations. But from the initial point, that's not when you would want to do that. From the first interview is what I mean. And how do you communicate politely? And that would be the end of our presentation. Now this is the Q&A portion, and I see that some of you have questions. So to answer your question, David, how do you communicate politely your non-disclosure? Are you talking like an NDA, or are you talking just in regards to the salary? If it's regards to the salary itself, you just want to let them know that you can either just say, you know what, I don't know what the market looks like, and I'd like to just see how things progress further, so I can get an accurate assessment of the responsibilities that this role has. Or you can just tell them that, you know, you're keeping your options open and you just want to learn more about the company at this point. Any other questions? As a recruiter, it makes my life a bit harder, yes. But if you're a good candidate, I'm not going to hold it against you. If you just want to learn more about the job, that's fine. I'll even send you to a final interview, but I'll even send you to a first interview. But like I said, at the end of the day, as a recruiter, if you're a good fit for a role, you holding on to salary isn't going to make or break the process for us. It's more important that you get the job first. Because usually in the first interview, you're not actually going to be able to accurately assess what the requirements of the job is, or what a company actually does. This is very prevalent in the startup world, to the point where it's expected that you're going to be taking on more responsibilities than what's on the job description. So the reason why you want to hold your cards close to the chest, as close to the end of the line as possible, is because you'll get a better idea of not only what the company's like, but also, again, things like commute, things like the work that they're doing, and in some cases, like now, there are some companies that up until it took a pandemic for them to loosen up on work from home options, right? You don't want to commit to a number that, if you get the job, it's going to require a lot more money for you to make it worthwhile. Yep. You always want to make sure that's worthwhile for you. Oh, let me see here. There are job applications that include previous salary and expectations are required. So legally speaking, we can't actually demand that you provide us with your previous salary. You can provide us with a range, I guess, but we actually can't demand any salary information from you. So I would actually double check that. In some cases, I would just leave it blank and try to press next. If that is the case, and again, they're forcing you to give that experience, my suggestion would be to push forward and again, look for something else in some cases. For those who are not from Canada and searching for their first job in Canada, how best can we compete with Canadians? The best way for you to compete with Canadians, honestly, would be to distinguish yourself. That would be either having hard to get certs or some really good certifications, or to have a number of projects under your belt that shows you off as impressive and competent. The main bias and the main reason why a lot of international applicants have challenges outside of the normal like immigration aspect, like once you're in the country, you're in the country. And so once you don't have the immigration challenge in front of you, you're able to, if you're able to show that you're more competent than everybody else, it would make it easier for you to stand out against the Canadians. Another thing as well is I have to emphasize networking events. Networking events are the best way for you to show somebody what you're about, who you are, and to give them a good impression of you. In some cases, going to a networking event and meeting the right person, you don't even need a resume in order to be successful at getting the job. So you go here. When I apply for a position that requires more qualification than I have, is it relevant to refer the position pay scale or to my expectations? Not sure if I completely understood what you were asking, Abdu. When I apply for a position that requires less, okay, so give me 1 second. When I apply for a position, then what I have, is it more relevant to refer to the position pay scale or my expectations? I would say refer to, so if there is a wide gap between your expectations and what the pay scale is, I'd like to say try to find a happy medium. If you are overqualified for a position that is, if a position is underpaying you for a position that's overqualified, I would say avoid it entirely, but try to find a middle ground if you are lacking experience, but you should always apply because you never know. What is your view on cover letters? What is the expectation? Should I always send my resume plus a cover letter? So I say this, cover letters are only necessary on jobs that you really, 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 really want. A cover letter, there have been times where a cover letter, a really good cover letter, has actually made us more interested in the candidate than the resume itself. I remember this person didn't end up getting the job with us, but they wrote such a compelling and such a sincere cover letter about what they loved about our company and why they would want to join us and what we can get if we bring them aboard, that we said, hell, why the hell not? And we did bring them in for an interview, and of course we figured out they weren't a good fit, but the cover letter got them through the door. So if you really, really want the job, I say not only have a cover letter that's specifically detailed to the company, that explains why this company makes you, why you have a passion for this company, why you want to work for them, what you can do immediately, and what you hope to be in the future within that company, makes it for a much more compelling read than just having a template sending out everywhere. So if you really want the job, put the effort in it. Customize cover letter, tailored resume. A lot of us have experience back home, but none in their field of study here. Apart from the course we are studying, how do you suggest we proceed? I would say the best thing that you could do if you have experience back home and you're having trouble getting experience here is to do the consulting thing. Try to turn your skills into a business and try to get some customers for that particular business. And it can literally, turning yourself into a business, it immediately gives you credibility, but it also puts you in a position where you have to go and you have to generate the returns. Now, how much you charge is completely up to you. You can even make it as some people do it where they offer their services for free or at a heavily reduced cost, just so that they can put the experience on their resume. But going to the consultant room, offering to sell your skills as a service would be a great way for you to leverage the experience that you got from back home. And that could be as, again, it could be something like a consultant. It could be something where you're going in, doing things hands-on, or you're just giving advice on how to expand. For video interviews, the best tip I can give you is to always make sure that A, you're in a quiet setting, you're in a quiet room. B, if there are people in your house, they know that you're doing a video interview, and that you also lock the door. And you always want to test your. I know I keep saying A and B. It's just a thing I do, but you always want to test your equipment, your mic, your headphones, your video prior to the day before the actual call. And you always want to make sure that you are exuding energy. Because you're remote, it's very, very, very easy for you to come across as monotone, for you to come across as bored. So you kind of, in a certain sense, have to over-exaggerate your, sorry, not over-exaggerate. You have to more, I think the word emphasize. You have to emphasize your energy a bit more to come across as somebody that is a joy to be around. Amazing, folks. So, unless there are any other questions, I think we're going to call it a session. Please, if you have any other, if you have any questions, or if you need help with your resume, or just interview skills in general, feel free to reach out to me. I don't charge for any of this. You can book a time with me on my calendar, or just message me on LinkedIn. But thank you again for joining me, and I wish you the best of luck in your search. This presentation will be made available within the next 24 hours. I'll send out the link, but thank you again for joining. Awesome. Everyone have a great weekend. Stay safe, and please sanitize. Sanitize your hands. Yes.